Welcome boys and girls from YouTube. My name is Sloth, this is Sloth Forge, and thanks a lot for stopping by. In today's video, I want to showcase you just real quick the 6 teams that I've been using for the endgame content for the final boss. As you can see, yesterday I finished with top 15, so within the top 20, which I'm absolutely fine with, because this is one of the first 10 servers and we have a lot of very good competition over here. As you can see, some extremely strong people on my server, so I'm super happy with those results. So yeah, but also important reminder, I didn't build those teams. Only one of those or 2 of those teams are built on my own. The other teams I took inspiration from a lot of different content creators. So yeah, just to say this is I didn't build those teams, and if you want more in-depth guides for those teams, then there are already some very good videos out there. Let me know in the comments below if you have any further questions, or if you need a particular video. I can definitely help you look those videos up. Also, I will put all the team codes in the description below as well, just right next to the timestamps. But now, let's get into this. The first team, and this is an extremely strong team. As you can see, my personal best was like 800 million with this team, but this team can deal up to 1 billion damage. While interestingly enough, Berengar here is our main DPS and not Twitch. This is an extremely interesting team, and also Twitch does a very good amount of damage here as well, but it is Berengar and her ultimate in particular that deal an insane amount of damage here. We're using, like in most of those teams, only a 13 seconds recast timer to stay in sync with the boss and to make sure that we always hit with our skills exactly at the timing when those ads spawn, because they spawn up to 6 ads. So this is the reason why here in this boss, just in general at the Mekkatorque, it is once again the fact that AoE teams perform better than single target teams. So yeah, this is the first team, and apart from that, nothing too complicated. There is only one thing that you have to be aware of. You need as much skill haste as somehow possible on your Huldork. Ideally, something like 120. It also works fine with less. Once I survived the whole 8 minutes with this exact team with only 110 skill haste or so. But yeah, the more skill haste you have, the better, because we want a 15 seconds recast timer, ideally, on our Huldork. If you're not even close to 100 skill haste, you can also just try him in inspiration set, and then still with the gatekeeper stuff, because it provides an additional skill haste. This is also possible. But we want to bring, if possible, we want to bring the frozen debuff, just for some additional debuffs for this exact content here. But as I said, you can absolutely try the inspiration set on Huldork as well, and this could work also quite fine, because as you can see, we're not using the inspiration set normally for this team, because yeah, we don't need it since we have a 30 seconds recast timer. But well, this is the first team. I really hope that I've mentioned everything. If you have any further questions, as I said, please let me know in the comments below. One more thing to mention here, as you can see on Twitch, we're actually using the Eloi's Fang, and I would highly recommend you to use this as well, because he is one of those heroes who do not have a 100% chance to inflict his debuffs. So this is a very, very good artifact just to improve his damage a bit further. Apart from that, by far the most important item, or the most important set that you want to bring on your main damage dealers, so on Twitch ideally as well, is the Skyfire Sunset, because it just increases your overall damage through poisons by 35%, which is amazing. And you only need 1 hero in the death record set, while ideally you're not using the death record set on your main DPS, because you're losing a little bit of damage, because every hero that inflicts poison can inflict the poison debuff and therefore activate this effect. So ideally you're not using this on your main DPS. But that's it with the first team. Let's talk about the second team, my summon team. Also here, this team can deal even a little bit more damage. I think up to 800 million, or close to 800 million was my personal best yet. One of the reasons, one thing that really boosted my damage was Centralia at Inspiration 5. So if your Centralia only set Inspiration 4 or below, you will deal absolutely less damage, like 100 million less or so. But apart from that, this team also is relatively straightforward and nothing too complicated. Just once again the same story as always with Lavanis. You just try to boost her damage many ways as possible. So this is why we're using Ursula's, why we're using Centralia, why we're using Bernard, also why we are using the Dark Lady. All we do here in this team is just to improve Leviathan's damage as good as somehow possible. And here are the skill timings. As you can see, the most of the heroes here actually are full default. You just want the Dark Lady and Leviathan to stay in sync, because the Dark Lady is inflicting the defense penalty on all of those adds. So this is why we definitely want to bring, or we definitely want the Dark Lady and Leviathan to stay in sync. But apart from that, this team honestly is also not too complicated, nothing too special about this team. I showed the skill timings already. If you have any further questions, please let me know in the comments below. The third team, the Burn team, and the team that in theory is able to deal the most damage, I think. Yeah, and here as you can see, I'm using Berengar, while I know a lot of you don't have Berengar. But there is a very good alternative, namely Huldork. And I also have him at Inspiration 4, so maybe I'm going to give him a try. But yeah, a lot of teams are using Huldork here instead of Berengar. I think then you have to adjust your timings as well a little bit. But as I said, if you have a bit more in-depth questions about this team, you can also ask me in the comments below or jump on my Discord server. For the skill timings, those here are the skill timings. Once again, we're using a 30 seconds recast timer. And when you're using Berengar, it is extremely important that you just stack as much HP as somehow possible, while also having at least 1000 additional defense so he can stay alive, and you will still probably have a very hard time to keep your team alive for the whole 8 minutes. Also the same with Huldork, it is just very hard to keep the team alive with only one support / healer. So it is not too easy, but there is once again a little bit of RNG involved as well. So you can just try to run those runs over and over again until you have good RNG and you survive until the end. Because as I said, with this team, it always dies somewhere between in the final minute. Sometimes I only survive 7 minutes, sometimes I survive 7 minutes and 50 seconds, which of course is a big difference when it comes to the damage. And also one more thing to mention, for Durham, this is definitely not the best in Sloth artifact. Ideally, you would use this artifact, the Oil of Skyfire, on Durham, and use the exclusive artifact on Ascadius. But if you don't have Ascadius' exclusive artifact, I would recommend to use the Oil of Skyfire on Ascadius. And then I'm just running this Dark Thornclaw here for some additional crit rate, because I struggled to reach enough crit rate on him. But this is definitely not ideal. I will try some other artifacts here as well. For example, the Whisper of the Consumer, while I'm not entirely sure how good the execute effect is going to be. Maybe this is even a bad effect to have. So I will have to test some more things. Maybe actually the Eyeball of the Giant is going to be interesting as well. So yeah, not entirely sure about this. The Dark Thornclaw just for the crit rate, so definitely not the best in Sloth set. I could maybe just try to give him some defensive stats, whatever. Just to mention this as well. I showed you the skill timings, and I think then there is nothing more to add. Here once again, the Skyfire Sunset is one of the most important sets for your damage dealers, so for Durham and Ascadius. But well, that's it. And once again, we're using the Frost Taint set just to bring this one additional debuff. And well, this is the Burn team. Next, the Rally team. The Rally team is built around Gladys and Filto, while the main damage here comes from Filto. Just in case you wonder, this is the positioning. But yeah, here the main damage comes from Filto, which is extremely interesting, and I really like the idea or the design here in general, that sometimes Huldork is the best performing rally hero. Now all of a sudden it is Filto who performs so much better. And then yeah, if you watched my other video already, for Season 3 it is going to be Philendor, who in one particular area is going to be absolutely absurdly strong. So yeah, stay tuned for this, or stay excited if you have Philendor, because on Season 3 there is finally the time for Philendor in the spotlight. But well, I digress. Back to the team. Nothing too special here about the team. If you run this team without Gladys, her exclusive artifact, you will lose around 100 million damage, maybe a little bit more than 100 million damage, so it is absolutely worth it. But it is not mandatory. Also, just by the way, if you wonder how much damage those teams deal, it is always here written in the name of the team. So my personal best with this team was 440 million, while without the reclusive artifact, I think my personal best was 325 or something. And well, here are the skill timings, and as you can see, for Donella and Jillian, we're actually trying to aim for a 15 seconds recast timer, but this is only possible because we are here in the rally category, in the rally faction, a rally school, and those heroes just have very short cooldowns and just ways to even shorten those cooldowns further. So this is why we're running those heroes on a 15 seconds recast timer. And then for Laurenthian and Gladys, we don't have any timers at all. And for Filter, it's the same. We have no recast timer. And here with this team, it is sometimes actually recommended to manual just for a second. So to just deactivate Filter's ultimate for just a second and wait until Donella used her ultimate until she inflicted a defense penalty, because sometimes it gets out of sync just because Filter refreshes his ultimate skill very, very fast. But well, this is just to increase your damage a little bit further. If you just want to maximize your damage, you can just manual his ultimate. You don't have to aim something. Just deactivate his ultimate for a short period until Donella used her ultimate, and then you can reactivate his ultimate. And then you should stay in sync for at least 1 or 2 minutes before you have to do this process once again. But well, I think that's it. I hope that I've mentioned everything when it comes to this team. The Hysteria Pan Flute is performing a little bit better than the Flute of the King, while the main reason for is the fact that we don't need any more crit rate. 60 crit rate is absolutely enough because Laurenthiel brings another 40% crit rate. So those 40% crit rate is a stat that is pretty much useless, or not entirely useless, because we have only like 80 or 90% uptime of increased crit rate. But the main reason why the Hysteria Pan Flute is performing better than the Flute of the King is because it brings additional crit damage. If you have really no crit rolls at all on your items, but only crit damage, then you can also use the Flute of the King, because I think the effect is actually a little bit better than the Hysteria Pan Flute's effect. But well, this is just once again, if you want to min-max a little bit, if you want to maximize your damage a bit further. And well, I hope that I've mentioned everything when it comes to this team. So let's go to the next team, to Ice Blast. And here, this is also really nothing too complicated. As you can see, I copied my Vortex team and swapped Asilia for Vinyara, and that's it. I didn't swap around any of their gear, if I'm not mistaken. And then in Vinyara, we're using her in the Emissary's Whisper set just to increase her damage a bit further. And in general, the Devout Prayer is a very, very good set on a lot of heroes here in those endgame content in general, because there are many ways to bring shields, and it doesn't matter how big the shield is. Increasing the damage by 10%, for 10 seconds by 12% is always good. So yeah. But here, nothing too complicated, nothing special. Here are the skill timings. As you can see, those are also like common skill timings for Ice Blast. Well, the only important thing here is that Vinyara, she's at 11.5, and then 18 seconds recast timer as well. So here we don't stay in sync with the boss, because it is a single target team. So we cannot do so as much damage as you can see as the other teams can, just because it is a single target damage, and the biggest amount comes from killing all those ads, which we're not doing with this team here. But still, it is quite good amount of damage, and a lot of people have Baldal and her exclusive artifact, so this is why I think this team will also help a lot of you. And then the final team, this is like my spare team. You could in theory also run a Frost team with Weetar, but I don't have Weetar, and I think that those teams here are performing a little bit better for my personal account. As you can see, here I tried the combination of Robot and Nathaniel to keep the team alive, which worked decently, but they struggled to keep the whole team alive for the whole 8 minutes. And here I used Robot, once again as a tank, and then I used Zeffi as well, which worked a little bit better. And if she has enough skill haste, she can also maintain a 15 seconds recast timer, which is very, very cool. So this is why I'm using Zeffi here. Oh, and well, there's one thing I forgot to mention. When it comes to the Poison team, I'm using Ogok on a 19.9 seconds recast timer, They're a first cast timer. There are a lot of different ways to do this. And the reason why I'm using a 19.9 seconds recast timer is because he does not have enough accuracy, enough skill haste. So over the time, he gets out of sync. And this is why I just used his ultimate a little bit earlier than I normally would do. So if I would have like 150 skill haste, and I would be 100% sure that I can go with a 15 seconds recast timer, then I would use a 20.9 seconds first cast timer. So this. But since, as I said, my Ogre gets out of sync after a couple of minutes, I'm using right now a 19.9 seconds first cast timer. Well, I will probably reduce this time even a bit further, something like 19.5 seconds, just as a small tip. And we're doing pretty much exactly the same here with this team as well. With Zeffi, I'm also, normally I would cast at 20.9 seconds, the first cast timer. But yeah, as I said, she gets out of sync as well. So this is why we're using a little bit earlier first cast timer. And this seems to work pretty decent right now at least. So, and this is the team, nothing too special here as well. Just, I'm using Slade to inflict the defense penalty. And he deals a bit amount of damage as well, but he's absolutely not needed. You can use someone else, for example, you could use Xing or Durango, even though, wait, Durango is also already here in this team. But there are a lot of people, a lot of units out there that work absolutely fine here instead of Slade. But they need to multiple hits on their ultimate, also ideally with AoE multiple hit ultimate. And you cannot use Dench for this because he only deals derivative damage, and heroes that only deal derivative damage with their ultimate cannot inflict defense penalty, just as a quick reminder. And yeah, that's it. Those are my 6 teams or 7 teams that I'm using right now for the Mekkatorque and boss content. I really hope that this was helpful for you. If you have any improvements for those teams or something you want to add, some criticism or whatever, please let me know in the comments below. And if it was helpful for you, please consider to leave a like and subscribe. But well, that's it for today. Thank you very, very much, and see you in the next one.